Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 88, May the 30th, 2017. It is Tuesday. Hopefully you all had a good Memorial Day weekend and you got some rest and had a lot of fun and did whatever you all do. Hopefully it all went well. Glad to have you all back and back with TowerGate. So the biggest story in the last couple of days, watching some of the liberal media, is that they're all beside themselves now because they've found out that James Comey took notes. He kept memorandums. And now they're all beside themselves because they believe that James Comey is going to disclose from his notes that possibly Donald Trump pressured him to back off the Russia investigation or the Russia-Trump collusion investigation or the Michael Flynn investigation. So the liberal press and members of Congress are all happy because they think James Comey is going to come out and drop this bomb from his notes that's going to take down Trump. So that's going to be the topic of my video for today. I have some thoughts on that, but before I do, there's a couple other things I want to touch on before we get to that, just real quick. Number one, of course, I guess you all know that Jason Chaffetz has resigned. And I think he has 2 more or 3 more days actually in the Congress, and then he will be leaving. So he was head of the Oversight Committee, so that means that the next 2 candidates likely that will be pursuing that position will be either Trey Gowdy or Jim Jordan. Of course, those are both pretty good guys. Trey Gowdy, he's got a good act, he's got a good shtick. He hasn't actually nailed anybody to the wall, but there's always a chance that he may, given the opportunity. But I would certainly rather have Trey Gowdy heading that committee than Jason Chaffetz. And that would be my pick, although Jim Jordan's a pretty good guy. He's actually a congressman in the district just north of me. And he's a pretty good guy, a bit of a neocon, but he's a pretty straight shooter. So he's part of the Freedom Caucus, and that's probably why he will not get that position. I know he's kind of pushing for it, but I think Trey Gowdy is also privately lobbying for that leadership role. And I think just because of his popularity and who he is, I think the next senior most person on the Republican side. I think it's very likely that Trey Gowdy may become the new head of the Oversight Committee in the House. And so that would be okay. I'd be okay with that. I would like to see how Trey Gowdy does when he's the man controlling the gavel. So again, been a lot of investigations where he's put on a pretty good show, but he hasn't yet nailed anybody. So he has a golden opportunity, and we can see if he can produce or if he's just a big sideshow. So we'll see what happens there. But if you like Trey Gowdy, it looks like he is leading. He's the leading candidate right now to take over for Jason Chaffetz. And so I think Chaffetz has 2 more work days in the Congress, and then he'll be gone. And I won't really miss Jason Chaffetz. I'm not a big fan. Okay, and another thing that one of my favorite subscribers, Maura, brought up about a week ago, or probably a little less than a week ago. She was talking about the fact that Trump has gotten a new attorney. His current attorney has been Michael Cohen. Now, I looked into that, and there's 2 things, really. Michael Cohen made some statement that probably, while Trump was on his overseas trip, that probably didn't make Trump very happy. But I don't think that that has anything to do with it. Michael Cohen has been Trump's attorney for a long time, but so has the gentleman that he's announced as his new attorney. Now, from what I can find out on the way this thing works, is that Cohen serves as Trump's White House counsel. Now, every president gets to have a White House counsel. It's an attorney that advises him on, things that the president can and can't do, or how he should or should not do something, or what have you, legalities and things like that. But actually, that position is for that attorney to represent the office of the president, not to be the president's personal lawyer, but to be an attorney that works for the president on issues about legalities about carrying out the office of president. And what happens, though, with most presidents, whether it's Bush or Clinton or Reagan, or it doesn't matter, Obama, it doesn't matter, they all have to maintain other personal lawyers because they get sued and they get investigations going on around them that are personal in nature and are not part of the normal function of a president. So the reason it appears that Trump has named this attorney, this new attorney, who's more of a criminal defense attorney, and he has represented Trump in the past in other lawsuits, it appears that it's because Michael Cohen, as White House counsel, is not allowed to advise President Trump on personal matters. And so this attorney that Trump has brought in was brought in to counsel him and represent him in regards to the in response to and in regards to the investigation that's being conducted by Robert Mueller, as well as any other investigations that might be happening in the Congress. So this is apparently what is going on. Cohen is there to represent the office of the president, and Trump is the president, so he represents him on issues that deal with the carrying out the functions of the president. But issues that are of a personal nature, you have to get your own private attorney to represent you on private matters. And apparently this is something that all presidents deal with. All presidents have a legal counsel that represents the office that they hold, but they all find themselves from time to time, in fact, much of the time that they're president, they find themselves constantly being sued and constantly being investigated and all these things. And so that generally calls for them to find a personal attorney to represent them in any type of other matters that might be going on. So that appears to be what's going on with that. Also, a couple very interesting things about Rob Wheeler. Of course, we're talking about the detective who has been an advisor to Fox News for about a decade or so, and who was the one who was apparently working on the Seth Rich investigation privately, representing the Seth Rich family. However, it looks like the Seth Rich family, the way they set that up, is that Mr. Rich did actually sign a paper authorizing Mr. Wheeler to act on his behalf to investigate the murder, but it appears that the money to do that came from another source. Now, it also appears that the Riches did not get permission from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the DNC, Donna Brazile, Brad Bauman, Hillary Clinton, or any of the people who are basically circling the wagons around the Riches to keep them from getting too close to anyone who might actually try to help them solve the murder. Apparently people around the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Clintons, or whatever, they want to keep the Riches, Mr. and Mrs. Rich, is insulated and as isolated as possible from outside influences. They want to have complete control and influence over the Riches. And so we learned a couple of days ago, in fact I just learned this actually yesterday, that from Brad Bauman in an interview that he did, and I learned this from H.A. Goodman actually, is that Rob Wheeler got a cease and desist order from an attorney, which I discussed yesterday, but more importantly, he also received a letter, and he was also told by apparently the Rich family that he, Rob Wheeler, is not allowed to even speak to Mr. and Mrs. Rich without Brad Bauman being present. Only if Mr. Bauman is present can Mr. Wheeler discuss anything with the Riches. Now you got to wonder how arrogant these people are. I mean, the Riches are free people, free to talk to anyone they want. I don't know who the DNC or Brad Bauman or who he represents think they are, that they can tell the Rich, Mr. and Mrs. Rich, who they can and cannot speak with. But apparently there's something going on here that's very, very strange. I haven't figured it out yet. I don't know if these people are being threatened or if they've been offered money or I don't really understand exactly what's going on, but this is getting very, very creepy, because quite honestly, if I were anyone, an investigator or anyone that was dealing with the Seth Rich issue, and I decided to call Mr. and Mrs. Rich or stop by for a visit, and they were interested in having a conversation or welcome me in or engaged in the conversation and of their own free will, I would continue to do that. And if somebody like a Brad Bauman or some attorney or someone from the DNC rang me up or sent me a letter or what have you and said, hey, you're not allowed to talk to the Riches unless Brad Bauman is present, let's just say I would have had some words for them. Let's put it that way. I would have told them where to shove it, for the most part. I would say I can talk to anybody I want, and I would have gone public immediately. Which it appears that that's what Mr. Wheeler has now done. He's now gone public, and he has now stated that he was told that he couldn't talk to the Riches without Brad Bauman being present. That is creepy. We also learned in the last 24 hours that Debbie Wasserman Schultz's brother just happens to be an assistant district attorney in the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., the place where Seth Rich was murdered, and the place where all this went down with the hacking and everything else. So now we learn that Debbie Wasserman Schultz's brother is an assistant DA in D.C. Man, you talk about the swamp. I mean, this is what you literally call a cabal. This is a cabal. All the insiders stacked into positions in federal and state and local government to be gatekeepers for each other, to protect each other, to have each other's back, and to make sure no justice ever happens against these criminals. That's why they feel so arrogant and confident and cocky about the things that they do, because they've got the system sewn up and rigged. It's just amazing. You got the police chief, hanging out and hanging around with high-level members of the DNC, Clinton minions, and people like that. Then she gets this great job with the NFL a month after the murder. She's pictured in photographs with the Clintons' bagman, Terry McAuliffe, pictured in photos with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the CEO of the DNC, and now we learn that her brother is an assistant DA in the city of Washington, D.C. Just absolutely astounding. As you learn more and more of this stuff, you begin to understand why everything is so rigged and how everything works or doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Alrighty. So the last couple days, the media's been going crazy over the fact that they learned that James Comey keeps notes. He makes memorandums. And in his notes, he took notes apparently from the dinner that he had with Donald Trump, where it is being suggested that James Comey may come out and disclose that Trump tried to pressure him into letting go of the Russia investigation or the investigation into Michael Flynn or what have you. There's also some liberals and some leftist media reporting that Trump may have tried to talk to both the head of the CIA, the new head of the CIA, and the NSA director, General Rogers, or Admiral Rogers, and tried to get them to go after the FBI or Comey, or at least ways delegitimize his Russian investigation or what have you. So you got a couple different things going on there. But back to the issue of Comey's notes. I think that's very, very interesting that James Comey kept notes. So what else did James Comey keep notes on? Remember, James Comey's been the head of the FBI for quite some time, about 7 years. A lot of things have transpired since James Comey's been the FBI director. And it appears that James Comey keeps notes. Well, I wonder what else James Comey kept notes on. Do you think that James Comey kept any notes on those briefings that he gave the Obama administration on the surveillance that he was conducting based on the false dossier Does James Comey have anything in his notes about his conversations with Loretta Lynch and her meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac? Does James Comey have anything in his notes about his conversations with Susan Rice and her activities in unmasking? Does James Comey have anything in his notes about anything he may have learned speaking with people at the Justice Department and the IRS during the IRS investigations? Does James Comey have anything in his personal memorandums regarding the Hillary Clinton email investigation? Does James Comey have anything in his notes regarding the surveillance being conducted on Trump Tower based on the FISA warrant he sought based on a dossier that was fraudulent? Does James Comey have any notes, memorandums on the events that took place in Benghazi, on the silencing of witnesses? Does James Comey have any memos on that? I mean, it seems strange that James Comey would only be a note taker when he had a dinner with Donald Trump. Seems to me if Mr. Comey was a note taker, that he probably has a lot of notes. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd like to see them all. Since he's going to go ahead and disclose from his private notes things that he may have written down after having dinner with Donald Trump, then I think that he should just go ahead and release all of his notes from his entire time as FBI director. So the question is, where are these notes? Are they on a notebook computer? Are they on his laptop? Were they handwritten notes he kept on a spiral notepad? Were they notes that he kept in his briefcase, or did they stay in a locked file cabinet in his desk at his office? Where are these notes? Because if you remember, folks, I told you that in the morning that Comey was fired. That very same morning, they sent security personnel over there to guard his office and make sure nothing came in his office or went out of his office. So if James Comey's notes were at his office, then those notes are probably in the possession now of either Mr. McCabe or Jeff Sessions or someone at the Justice Department, or possibly they're still locked away in his desk, and maybe they'll be waiting there for the new FBI director to come in. But it's very interesting that James Comey took these notes, because there's a lot of things that James Comey probably could reflect on from his notes, from a lot of things that went down during his tenure as FBI director going back 7 years. So yes, I think it's a wonderful idea that James Comey took notes after having dinner with Donald Trump. But I would think that if he's an avid note taker, then he probably has many, many notes. And I don't know about you guys, but I think he should show us all of his notes. Don't you? I'm sure that we could learn a lot from James Comey's notes about things like Benghazi, about Hillary's email scandal, and about a lot of other things, including the notes, possibly any notes on the Dennis Montgomery whistleblower, the multiple hard drives and hundreds of millions of pages of proof of illegal surveillance. Did Mr. Comey keep any notes on that? I'm sure Mr. Comey kept a lot of good notes, and I think we should see them all. And that's exactly what I would do if I were sitting there on that House or Senate committee, or if I was Mr. Mueller, assuming Mr. Mueller is a straight shooter, and I'm about 90% sure he's not. I'm about 90% sure that Mr. Mueller is part of the swamp and will be there to defend and protect the swamp. And he is not a friend of Donald Trump. That would be my guess. Remember, he was appointed by Mr. McCabe, who's also no friend of Donald Trump. So the swamp monsters are taking care of themselves and protecting the swamp. And that's what it looks like to me. But anyway, that's the question I would ask if I were, say, Trey Gowdy, the new, hopefully the new head of the Oversight Committee. I would call James Comey in, sit him down and say, okay, I understand that you took a lot of notes. Good. We'd like all your notes. Now, I assume they're government property. I mean, if they have anything to do with his office, business that he conducted as FBI director, and they're not classified, which we can assume that they're just notes that Comey made to himself, and therefore they should not be classified, I would think that Mr. Gowdy would be able to get Mr. Comey to turn over all those notes, assuming they are even in his possession. Remember, unless he took those notes with him, unless he had them on a notebook computer or something that he traveled with, and he's got those notes. But if those notes are on his office computer in his office, or if they're in a file cabinet or something like that, then they are in fact probably available to be looked at by Attorney General Sessions, or an independent prosecutor, or the new FBI director, or someone. So yes, I think it's a wonderful idea that Comey's got notes. I think we should see them all. So anyway, that's basically what we got going on today. Not a whole lot. Again, it's going to be very, very slow for a while. Again, the Congress is only going to work 28 more days between now and Labor Day. And of course, so nothing will really be happening over the summer other than what's going on with the Mueller investigation, and of course the leaks that will be coming out. And you can bet there'll be plenty of those. More whistleblowers coming out. We're learning more things every day about Seth Rich. So there's a lot going on. You just have to dig a little harder for it. So anyway, that's pretty much what we have today. I certainly hope we get to see James Comey's notes, every damn one of them, going back 7 years. I'm sure we can learn a lot of things. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all of you subscribing and sharing my videos. It's day 88, May 30th, 2017, TowerGate. You guys have a good night. Bye.